used to cost money is now free online. Not that I make any money off this at all, but it's called Designing for the Web by Mark Bolton, and he's a UK designer. He's famous, I guess. Yeah, so that book basically covers everything that was in this talk and a whole lot more, and it's really well written, and there's a whole lot of tips about how to be an effective freelancer in there as well. So if you're a freelancer, then it's a good book to read. Warmly recommended. And finally, all these rules, I spat out like a whole bunch of rules. You don't actually need to obey them. Get comfortable, use them a couple times so that you know how they work. But it's okay to break them. And in fact, that's the hallmark of the greatest design. It's not the rules that we use, but it's the rules that we break that make the design interesting. Just don't break too many at once, because usually that sucks. But if you break a rule consciously and you say, I'm going to not obey this, it actually calls attention to that. And that's how you put like a subtle emphasis on something. So yeah. So break rules. And that's it. Russ.
Question about stealing.
Yes.
If I steal the design of another website, what are the legal implications of that?
Okay, so when I said steal, let me clarify. Don't steal other people's designs. Steal as in draw inspiration from. Look, you can go and even take their markup and work with it and alter it. Draw inspiration. Don't just lift like a whole website wholesale and then just change the text. That's not cool. Plus, people will notice. It's the internet. Somebody will notice, and they'll call you out, and you'll feel like a retard. So don't do that. It's probably best to steal piecemeal. Like you really like a small element. A good way to learn is try to build that yourself, and you can cheat by peeking at the code and see like, oh, how did they do that? Oh, okay, that's how they did it. But change it a little bit. Maybe they did it like small and with this color and at this location in the page. There's only so many different ways to do thumbnails. It's if you do it even a little bit differently, it's different. It's okay. But don't just go and like wholesale steal like a whole thing. That's not cool. And legal implications, yeah, if it's copyrighted, then yeah, you're probably legally accountable like anything else that you'd steal. Ask Jacob, he knows more about copyright than I do. But yeah, don't steal, that's not cool.
Have you got any more recommended reading?
More recommended reading. Wow. Like educational reading or stuff like news that I can read on a daily basis reading?
Or just kind of interesting design books, stuff like that.
Interesting design stuff. Wow, there's like a whole lot. I need to check my bookmarks because I don't actually remember the addresses of these sites. But if you look around, there's a lot of famous designers. Mark Bolton is one of them. Wilson Miner is another. You start going to their blogs. Jeff Croft, he's another Django designer, developer. You start going to their blogs and see where they link out to and branch out from there. I think it would be really awesome to also learn, like go and read about other things like type and history of. It's actually fun and informative, maybe just for me, but I think it's actually useful to read these things. You learn a lot from them, and it's applicable everywhere. Once you start noticing like the stuff that these people point out, you'll notice it everywhere. You can't unsee it. So I don't know. I need to think about that, and I'll look on my laptop and I'll give you a list, or maybe I'll put it up. I'll stick another, I'll shove another slide in at the end of my talk before I post it online.
Cool, thank you.
With a bunch of sites that I recommend you start out with, I guess.
One of my favorite books is Elements of Typographic Style.
Yes.
It's awesome. It's
yes.
like a really thick book of the sort of typographical rules you were listing, but thousands of them
Bringhurst
in intricate detail.
Bringhurst is awesome. Wait, is that Bringhurst or is he the web one? I don't remember.
I have no idea.
Sorry, it's Bringhurst. Yes, okay. There's actually like a web companion to that called The Elements of Typographic Style Applied to the Web, and the URL is somewhere in the typography section. And it's a good resource. I think it's, I put it right underneath the typography for lawyers. It's like webtypography.net or something. Also has like a bunch of prescriptive rules that you can ignore partly, if it doesn't work out for you. So yeah, I'm a type geek, so anything with type is awesome for me. And now it's also an area that's really flowering because finally we can do good type on the web. Even, yeah, I guess so.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, double plus to the Bringhurst is also just a beautiful printed book when you get it, which follows all his own rules, writing his own book. Question I want to ask, particularly when it comes to the color stuff, is there are really big accessibility questions, particularly because this room's pretty much all men, with one exception, I think. With
like
color
blindness.
Yeah, color blindness and things like that. Any guidelines or suggestions on how to handle those sort of issues?
Hire a professional. No, this is why I gave that caveat at the beginning of the color thing, that it's harder than the other things. It's easy to give tips for color, for type and for structure and whatever, because it's things you can see right off the bat. Color, because it's so complicated, there's biology, there's culture, there's all these different things. And so yeah, somebody that really knows their stuff would be helpful if you're doing something for real.
Does any of that follow through? Like, are they similar things we need to be aware of that, other than color blindness, for font selection or anything like that that are worth paying attention to?
For color specifically?
Well, not actually. Color is one of your aspects you're talking about, but also
Right.
typography and fonts and things like that. Are there any others that we may not know about that we should?
I mean, yeah, the devil is in the details. You know, for example, in typography, you want to select a typeface that's suitable for the display medium you're displaying it on. Like a good typeface for really small type, as viewed on, for example, a mobile device, is very different than a typeface you'd use for SproutCore because you can use this enormous type. So there's these endless refinements you can do, but there's nothing like, oh, by the way, half of people can't see serifs or anything like that in typography. But there is I think the classiest typography is when people take into account how people are going to be viewing this type, how people are going to be using. Are they going to be using it like in a car where they can only glance very quickly? There's actually typefaces designed specifically for highway signs that are elongated in a way that make them appear more legible when you're traveling at highway speeds down a dark highway, and it's like white type on a dark background of a sign, and it's reflective, so it glows a little. Yeah, there's all these things that, if you really want to get into it, you have to pay attention to it. But, for a 30-minute talk, kind of beyond the scope.
I can have two related questions. First is about styling links. I'm kind of surprised in your examples that you show sites where the links are not visible. For example, for We Are Hunted, you don't know which links are, which text is a link. That's the first question. And a related question is what you think about guys like Jakob Nielsen and usability problems, because...
Yes, Jakob Nielsen. Where was Ben? Yeah, there's another site to read.
Because those sites are quite awful to look at, but
I don't like Jakob Nielsen's site either. But
they are really usable. So my question is, what do you think about this tension between usability and looking good?
Okay, wait. Well, I'll start with the second one because no, the first one was the thing about links. So the question is, what do I think about sites that don't delineate their links in a special way? Did I phrase it correctly? Okay. It depends on the site. It's again, it's one of those things where it's just like, if this is the rule you're breaking. For what's its name? News. No, you know what? This will just take too much time. For We Are Hunted, pretty much all the pieces of text on that site is a link. There is nothing there that isn't a link. So, there's nothing that needs to be specially delineated, or there's very little text that isn't a link. And I'm pretty sure that even like the text for each of those albums, just that whole box is probably clickable. So that's a case where they said, if we're going to underline, we'd have to underline everything. That actually reduces readability. We're just going to trust that people get that, like, copyright blah, 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 what news or whatever is the copyright at the bottom is not a link. If they try to click it and it doesn't work, they'll be like, oh, yeah, it's because it's a copyright statement. It probably doesn't link to anything. Generally, styling links, there's